Hello and welcome to Crushing Comics from the Comic Crush. We are the comics review show. I am Dr. Jones. This is Short Round, also known as Paul and Liz, for those of you that have just dropped in for the first time. We're going to, as the title suggests, review some comics very quickly, we hope, today. So we're going to get on in just a moment. First, we're going to play another game of Has Liz remembered her headphones? The answer is no, Liz hasn't.
Any day now.
Sorry, just for a bit of background, Liz was giving me a hard time because I forgot to read one of the books we were supposed to review today. I did buy it. So, Marvel have got my money. Good luck to those guys. Liz is going to encapsulate the book for us in a moment. I'm going to talk about something else. Liz, what book should we do first? We got a lot to kind of get through today.
We do. Why don't we talk about one that we both read?
Let me guess. Is this going to be a bat-flavored book? A bat-adjacent
well,
book?
Actually, yeah, it could be a bat-flavored book. Okay, yeah, why don't we start with that? So this is a book we actually I wanted to talk about last week, but it didn't come out in the UK until...
No, it missed, I think it missed the shipment in the UK, unfortunately. So Nightwing 80, which I've got here, sorry. Well, there you go. This is by Tom Taylor. With art by Bruno Redondo, colors by Adriano Lucas, letters by Wes Abbott. Liz, now I'm assuming you were really looking forward to this. Have you read issues 78 and 79, the two issues that precede this?
I have, and I think the reason I wanted to talk about this is because for a little bit of background, anybody who does not know me and my tastes very well, like Dick Grayson's like my favorite DC character. I love Nightwing. It's like, basically just like a book that I always want to love. And unfortunately, for maybe the last year or two, ever since during Tom King's run, and sorry, spoilers if you haven't read Tom King's run of Batman, cover your ears, run away. Dick gets shot in the head and he loses his memory, which we could, for me, that was kind of an interesting twist to happen to the character, but I just really didn't like the execution of it, the way it went down in the Nightwing book. And there was just this long slog of Nightwing comics in which he didn't remember who he was. He went by the name Rick Grayson. He didn't remember that family, and he just kind of turned into this jerk, and he was just totally not himself as a character. So for a really long time, I really struggled to read Nightwing, and I kind of gave up. I was kind of like, you know what, I just can't take it anymore. I'll come back when Dick's back to normal. And so it's been, it was a sad time. But Tom Taylor happens to be a writer that I love. And when I heard that the book was going into his hands, especially, that made me so excited. And, this is the Dick Grayson I know and love. And really, for these last three issues, it feels more like the character than I can remember in a long time. So these three issues have been a huge uptick in Bat family ingredients that I love. We've got Barbara as Oracle, and their dynamic has been really fun. And then in this issue, which is why I kind of thought, this would be a fun one to talk about, we also get a team up with Tim Drake as Robin, which was just a joy to read.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great issue. I haven't read the other two, unfortunately, because I just didn't get a chance to pick them up. 78 and 79 sold out really fast over here.
Everywhere.
Before I'd even knew that they'd hit the the shelves. I think there was another reprint, or at least when I went into Gosh this week, they did have 78 in. I don't know if that was a second print or what. I didn't pick it up because I couldn't find 79. I just sort of crossed my fingers that we were going to be able to kind of pick up on the
printing of 79 this week.
Oh, right. I've probably just, I'll catch up with it. I really enjoyed this, though. I mean, first off, it has an interesting conceit in that not to give too much away, but Dick Grayson gets accused of murder right at the beginning, which is an interesting spot for Dick because he has been in this position before, way back in the sort of Chuck Dixon, Devin Grayson stuff. I believe he kill Blockbuster? He did actually murder, or at least the
illusion was the Devin Grayson run.
Yeah.
And Blockbuster, showed up in issue 78. So, I mean, Blockbuster, in this, sort of run of continuity is not dead.
No.
These great ingredients. It's got Blockbuster. It's got lots of the things that that Devin Grayson run, which I'm completely obsessed with. If you haven't read that, it's only really available in single issues, but it is fantastic. It is probably my favorite Nightwing run, and it's amazing. So, seek those issues out. So we've got all these ingredients kind of reminiscent of that run, which I loved. And also, aside from being accused of murder, one of the really interesting ingredients about this is the fact that Alfred has left Dick all of an inheritance, which turns out Alfred was in fact a billionaire. He of course. You always kind of wonder, okay, does Alfred just work for Bruce? Does he get paid? What's going on? It turned out that Alfred had whatever money he had somehow accumulated this fortune on the sly, and he left it all to Dick. So now Dick is way richer than Bruce, and part of one of the main sort of things going on in this series is him figuring out what to do with that money, and he says point blank, well, I always thought that Bruce could do more as Bruce Wayne, and then he does. So, what's Dick going to do with that, now that he's in position?
Which is a great kind of conceit that gets kind of thrown at Batman, both in sort of reality and in the books. It's not one I always kind of agree with. I think to kind of lose this central conceit of, actually, if I go and just put on a bat suit and run around and beat people up, I could probably do quite a lot. It would, of course, destroy the book if you start taking that away. However, there's been this move to kind of, and in a way, it kind of follows the public consciousness where people seem to hate people with wealth at the moment, which I find a really interesting kind of way to look at life. Not for real. I won't go into it here as to why, but there are things about that. I think there are moral arguments to be made for and against. I really like the panel construction of this issue. The panels are great. Particular favorite is the big spread when Barbara and Dick are walking back into his apartment, and it's kind of the big overhead shot. And guys, you've got, I mean, you can't really see
I mean,
you've got, and also the cutaways with the elevator. You've got to appreciate that one of the hardest things for artists to draw are overhead shots. They are, by all accounts, an absolute nightmare. So incredible work by Bruno, and also the colors in this issue are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the art has been, stellar. And I'm not familiar with Bruno Redondo as an artist. I can't think whether read anything else that he's drawn, but I think he's like so well suited to this book. Like he draws the characters so well. Like, you know, they you know, it's just, you know, and as you say, the colors really make it pop. So so it's great art team. You know, in addition to great writing from Tom Taylor, who I think is such a good fit for writing Dick. Like, you know, he has this sense of humor to his writing that really suits a Nightwing book. You know, I've particularly kind of enjoyed the way he's written the dynamic between Dick and Barbara. You know, that's been really fun to read. There's like a fun couple of panels in this when they're being interviewed by the police, and the police, you know, say, well, what is the nature of your relationship? And they just look at each other and they're like, you know.
And also just the fact that there's a sort of gentle one-upmanship in that they both have law degrees, as they point out. And I love the later scene where Tim is asking Dick, oh, so did Barbara spend the night? And she's like, I'm on this frequency. I'm listening to you. It's like, oops.
I love that she's being Oracle again. That like makes me so happy. I mean, I think that has kind of been going on to some degree or other, but I think this really feels like, you know, she's there in that capacity.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is something that I really missed from those older books, like, you know, the kind of Bodies era books.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they've aged her up again a bit, which is great.
Wearing glasses, like, you know, she looks she looks a lot like, you know, kind of she did in those, like, you know, those Naughties issues when she was still in a wheelchair at the time. But
yeah, and you know, as you say, their dynamic is fantastic. The dynamic between Dick and Tim is fantastic. All in all, just a very, very excellent, solid issue. And I really enjoyed this.
Yeah,
absolutely really enjoyed it. Yeah, so I would say go out and get that, guys.
Any of those, from 78 on is when the Tom Taylor run starts. They are doing subsequent printings of 78 and 79. As I said, a second printing of 79 came out this week. And I think there has been at least another, you know, second printing of 78. But it wouldn't surprise me if they do third printings. It's been very popular, so, you know, grab them if you see them. But even if you want to pick it up from issue 80, it's like you read it. You didn't have any problems following along.
Zero, yeah. Yeah, just I really enjoyed that. Fantastic issue. What should we talk about next?
Okay, well, why don't we talk about so bit of a miscommunication somehow or other, but but we ended up reading two different books. So, you know, books that we had discussed talking about. You read one, I read the other. So why don't we just very briefly sum up what, you know.
Do you want me to go first on
Go for
Mr. Miracle? Yeah. Right. So this is the first issue, Mr. Miracle, Source of Freedom, DC Infinite Frontier. Nice cover by Yannick Paquette there. This issue is written by somebody, when I can find the credits page, Brandon Easton, with art by Faiko Osayo, colors by Rico Renzi, and letters by Rob Lee. Now, this, I believe, is kind of spinning out of Infinite Frontier, but for me was a lot more accessible than last week's Wonder Girl issue. It's just kind of told straight. So Shiloh Norman is the current Mr. Miracle. He starts the book with a daring escape, free falling from atmosphere through space into Earth's atmosphere, whilst sort of chained up, and he has to kind of escape the chains and open a parachute. It's a really fun book. It touches on a lot of kind of serious themes that kind of are running through the African American experience right now. Shiloh Norman's representatives want him to take off the mask and say, "Hi, I'm Shiloh Norman. I'm Mr. Miracle." This again is kind of something that's running through DC. We've had Superman kind of admit that he's Clark Kent. What it kind of touches on is that, I guess, you know, African American people need kind of inspiration. right now, and I think his reps kind of want him to kind of do that. But of course, they're keeping one eye on the fact that there is money in that. There is money to be made. He's not skewing right with certain demographics, so they kind of want him to buck up there. But he refuses. He wants to stay secret. He does sort of confess his identity to a firefighter that he meets, and they go out on a date, which turns out really badly, which I really liked. There's a general kind of theme running through the books of not living to your kind of authentic self. So when Shiloh goes out on a date with the firefighter, she scolds him because all he talks about is like the entertainment industry that he's in and Hollywood and stuff like that, and she's just kind of, I'm not impressed by any of this. Talk to me. And of course, at the same time, he suddenly finds himself, I think, living in everyone's nightmare, but especially a nightmare for people of color at the moment. He's accused of a crime. The crime he's accused of, though, is kind of financial fraud, and he stands to lose his home and, the Mr. Miracle name, everything associated with that. He doesn't want to kind of come out as Mr. Miracle because he remembers the kind of hounding that the first Mr. Miracle, Thaddeus Brown, got when he kind of unmasked, and he doesn't want to be part of that. He doesn't want to be subject to that. It's again a really solid book. Like, it's just solid.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed it. I don't know much about Shiloh Norman. I remember him from Seven Soldiers. He has appeared recently in Infinite. Again, all of these spin out of Future State, which I didn't read, but the trades are on their way, so I'm going to start picking those up. This is a really good book. It has no relation at all to Tom King's Mr. Miracle, and is all the better for that. There is a sort of twist character that pops up at the end. I'm not going to reveal that because I want you guys to obviously be kind of surprised and get into that. And the thing is, it's like the one thing you can't escape is yourself, really, your own true identity. And I love the kind of nature of escape artists and what they do. There's a lot of interesting stuff, I think, that will come out of issues. The book looks gorgeous. I mean, that cover is just a feast for the eyes. I love the kind of just stripping it back to the three colors. It's great. Good work all throughout the book. Really enjoyed that. I would say go pick that up. So two solid recommends so far, Liz. Mm-hmm. Would you like to talk about Reptil #1?
Yeah. So the book I read this week was from Marvel. Obviously, we're not just going to talk about DC books this week.
Yes.
And it is a character that I don't know particularly well, and I think a lot of readers probably don't know particularly well, which works in its favor. It's kind of cool. It's just a mini series. It's a 4-issue mini series. But I like when they kind of pluck out a character from relative obscurity and, put a spotlight on them, especially when it's a character that, that people don't know that well, that might, have yet to be really developed. Now, I do know this character from a couple of books that I really loved. But these books happened to have kind of really big casts of characters. So the book I know this character from, the character's name is Humberto Lopez, Reptil, who his power is he discovered this amulet when his paleontologist parents were on a dig, that gives him the power to mutate into any sort of dinosaur, or even just an aspect of a dinosaur. So he'll be able to grow a tail of a stegosaurus all of a sudden, or the head of Triceratops, you know, which like he can use as a battering ram. It's, you know, and you know, so his power is, you know, it's kind of versatile. But yeah, so the books I know him from are the excellent Avengers Arena from Dennis Hopeless.
Right. Okay.
Book I absolutely love. You know, anybody who knows me, I will bang on about that book. It is fantastic. It's like a kind of Hunger Games / Battle Royale scenario with a load of the young Avengers characters. You know, which sounds like it could be terrible, but it is amazing. It is so good. And it was followed on by kind of a sequel called Avengers Undercover, which Humberto Lopez was also in. And I think he also features in the Avengers Academy books. So he has been around. But, you know, I just, you know, aside from those books, I don't really know too much about him. And, you know, he was a member of a very big cast in those books. So, you know, I don't feel like I got to know him super well. I got to know him better, you know, better than I had. But this is the first book I've read from him in a couple of years easily. And it was nice to see a spotlight on him. So as I said, his powers are that he can sort of mutate into a dinosaur. But the problem is, like, if he sort of goes full dinosaur, he loses his ability to control it. And, you know, he's scared that he will hurt someone.
So never go full dinosaur is the...
yeah. Especially not full T-Rex, you know. You're asking for trouble. But you know, so basically this book takes him from New York, where he'd been living, and he moves back to Los Angeles, where his family lives like now. So his history as a character is his parents were paleontologists. They went on a dig, he found the amulet, and then on the next dig that they went on, they went missing. Like, so both of his parents have gone missing, and you know, he has been brought up after that by his grandfather, and you know, it seems like his aunt has also played a big role in his life. So he is moving back to Los Angeles to live with them because his grandfather's health is not good, and his, you know, he's gonna go live with his aunt and grandfather and basically help them out. And it's bringing him back to his roots. Now, a big part of this book is, or a big aspect to it, I guess, is the fact that, you know, this is a Latino character, and this book is has a fully Latino creative team. So the writer is Terry Blas. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The art team is Enid Balam and Victor Olazaba. And so, you know, and so that it's his Mexican American heritage is, you know, kind of really emphasized in the book. There's a lot of, you know, little bits of, like, you know, kind of Spanish and Spanglish, like, you know, scattered throughout the issue. You know, so in a very authentic way, you know, it's kind of like it doesn't translate to English for you. You kind of just have to follow along with it, but it's not so heavy-handed that you can't. Yeah, so basically, you know, he's got a supporting cast of his two cousins that, you know, he's gone to live with, and they're kind of, you know, there's a little bit of like comic relief with them, and you know, and they're fun characters unto themselves. So, you know, you're just kind of like, you're getting to know his family unit. You're getting to know the secrets kind of going on behind, like, you know, his grandfather is ready to basically, you know, like declare his parents dead, and he doesn't want to. And, you know, so he has issues with anger. You know, he's kind of open about that. He gets in a big blowout with his grandfather over that. And then, you know, admits that he has trouble controlling his anger, and that's part of why he's afraid to go full dinosaur. And and you know, at the end of the issue, there's a confrontation with a mysterious villain who shows up who wants to reclaim the amulet from him. And you know, another one of the supporting characters reveals that they have a power. Okay, so cool. You know, so it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a really fun first issue. You know, I like the character. You know, it was just kind of a fun, refreshing issue. There's, you know,
So yeah, I did buy the book. It is just over there. I didn't read it though, but I will do now on the strength of that. But yeah, like it sounds like it's fun. I'm again not the biggest Marvel fan. They're not the books I gravitate towards, which is why I'm so glad you do. But I usually have fun when I do actually kind of read them.
Yeah, you really don't need any background on the character to read and enjoy this issue at all. Like, I mean, the fact that I had read him in a few other things was like, it was more noteworthy than required in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look forward to reading it. It's just kind of one of those things that got away from me this week. Sorry. One book that didn't get away from either of this, just our last single comic of the show, was Made in Korea by Jeremy Holt, George Scholl, and Adam Wallet. I'm really sorry, guys, because you're probably bored of me talking about this book now. I did an interview with Jeremy just last week. That interview is now up on this channel, and also the podcast version. That interview is available for those of you who like to listen to us on Spotify and Apple. I was totally blown away by this. I really enjoyed it. I've got quite a sort of low-key fascination with books about AI and about machines kind of discovering their humanity. This is kind of set in a future where there is some sort of disease, it seems, that's sterilizing humanity gradually. And one of the ways that humanity is coping with that is building these robotic children called proxies and installing a basic AI in them that doesn't learn beyond a certain point. So the children are sort of meant to be around sort of teenage age. They're not designed to grow any further or intellectually beyond a certain point. The story is set in both America and Korea. In Korea, a bioengineer has created a super learning AI, which he installs in a defunct model, a defunct proxy child called Jessie, who gets sold at a cheap price to a childless couple in America. Once Jessie gets to America, she begins learning at a really prodigious rate, but of course is still a child. So Liz, I know how I found it. I've talked about it quite a bit this week.
I'm sure. Yeah. Right. Well, obviously this was my first experience of it. And I was blown away by it. I thought, in terms of first issues from Image, I mean, there is like a pretty high bar, Image that's, with their issue ones, like, just kind of across the boards, they tend to be really great. The creators work in Image, tend to be of a really high caliber, but Jeremy Holt and George Scholl aren't creators that I had been familiar with prior to this. And so I didn't know what my expectations were going to be, but I was really, bowled over by the art, which is incredible. What it kind of reminded me of, and I'm probably going to get his name wrong because it's been ages since I thought of him. But is it James Hardy? I want to say.
What did he do? Do you remember?
I don't know, like loads of kind of independent stuff, and then some work for like Marvel and DC. I don't know. It'll come to me, but it's that like kind of fine lines, super detailed, really like almost kind of graphic designy.
Yeah, style. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just really beautiful, like and like you were talking about panel layouts earlier, like I think this, like the strength of the panel layouts here is massive, in terms of the way the story is told, and yeah, just like the whole combination of ingredients, I thought it was a really standout first issue of a series. And I love books about AI too. You know, there are quite a few good ones from Image, in fact. Alex and Ada.
Yeah.
Descender. And, you know, there's quite a few others, you know, that, you know, I just like, I find the concept super fascinating. Like the Vision series, you know, the Tom King Vision series is another, you know, that, you know, is just mind blowing. Ghost in the Shell.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
So this, you know, I felt like this kind of stands right next to those, you know, in terms of, you know, an interesting twist on that. You know, because it's a, you know, it's a story we all kind of know to some degree or other, you know, it's been told, but it's how you tell it, you know, that makes it unique. And one of the things you told me about Jeremy Holt as a creator that I found interesting in terms of this story is that they were adopted as a child. And, you know, the idea here, you know, of adoption, you know, being part of, you know, the story,
you
know, and here it's adopting robotic children, and sort of the way they're talked about is interesting.
Yeah, and
parents.
Jeremy has gone on quite a journey, I think, in the last year or two in rediscovering their Korean roots, and kind of reassociating with their Korean identity. You know, so that was fascinating to hear, because I did interview Jeremy a couple of years back for a book called After Houdini, and the sequel Before Houdini, which I know seems confusing, but will make sense if you read the books, which were great books. And of course, we didn't touch on any of that stuff then. They weren't going through that journey at that time, as far as I know. But it's been fascinating the way that they've managed to ingrain that into the book. I really wish them well on the rest of that journey. I was very lucky with this book because it has been completed, or a large portion of the book has been completed for quite a while. I think it got delayed by COVID and various other things. So I was lucky enough to read up to issue 3. Some great stuff happens. I'm really excited to see what happens, you know, 4, 5, and 6, and maybe we'll get Jeremy back on for the trade,
because it's a 6-issue series, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
And just beautifully done. Done. Like I was really bowled over by it, and you know, really loved it. So please, guys, because it's an indie book, and I don't think it's really got enough press, unfortunately, do check out the interview with Jeremy, which is on this channel. And please do, if you like the sound of the book, go pick it up now, like as soon as possible, because, you know, even to get to 6 issues sometimes is a bit of a struggle for some books. They get cancelled midway through their runs. Maybe they don't get seen again. I wouldn't want that to happen to this book. I think it's an interesting, sensitive, intelligent book, and people really need to be reading it. So please do go and take a look at that. So just staying quickly, we're just going to do a few minutes on some trades. Only a couple of trades this week. Just staying in the sort of independent arena. This is, I've done it again. I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Manny Murphy. This is a beautifully kind of handmade book that deals with Manny's fascination and obsession with River Phoenix. Sorry, I'll get it right in a minute. River Phoenix, around the time of My Own Private Idaho. Is this not a fascination that you share?
Well, I mean, I think any girl who like grew up in the 90s, like, you know, like, I'm pretty sure, you know, that's just like a unanimous thing.
Once again, we find ourselves at the mercy of Lizzie's hormones for another episode.
What can you do?
Indeed. What can you do? Can I've got to ask Liz, in Orbital, inexplicably, in the back room in Orbital, there was a small poster of River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves in My Own Private Idaho. Was that down to you? Did you stick that up?
No, I did not. I can't claim, there's other girls who worked at Orbital. I don't, but I can't take credit for everything.
So the book does start being about Manny Murphy's kind of, I don't want to say obsession, but teenage obsession with River Phoenix in My Own Private Idaho. It also becomes a story of the kind of heroin scene, if you like, in Portland, Oregon. But then further to that, something I didn't realize about Oregon or about Portland was the kind of connection it has with white supremacist groups. Now, what's interesting is the book slowly transforms as it goes. It kind of starts layering in these things and really starts to transform as you go further and further in. It's a fascinating story. And it takes in a lot of kind of the pop culture that Manny was interested in around the time. It's this wonderfully, relatively crude, I hope she doesn't mind me saying that, I don't mean it as an insult, but kind of hand-drawn style. I can never get it right with the camera. As you can see there, it's all kind of done with marker pen as a diary. And literally there's bits where you can kind of see the marker pen soaking through the pages, and it's a wonderfully made book. But it's kind of an area of a thing about Portland that I didn't know. I have a kind of quasi fascination with Portland because I knew someone from there once. It was my buddy's kind of wife was from there, and she would talk quite fondly about the place, and it just seemed like this really kind of cultured, interesting area of the States.
I've actually gone to visit there, quite a few times, because my uncle lives out there, and who's an artist. Okay. I would go stay with him, and it's really my perception of it was that it was as you say, a really kind of cool, cultured, lefty, arty, sort of haven of kind of creative types, and hippies, and that sort of vibe is everything that I picked up on my experience of visiting there. They have this incredible bookshop, Powell's, which is really famous. Yeah. Every time I would go visit there, I would have to spend a whole day in Powell's, and I went to see bands play there. A bunch of my favorite bands are from there. It's just my perception of it was that it would be a really cool place to live. So I had no idea that there was this connection with white supremacy as well.
Yeah. I'm not quite all the way through the book. I'm just really enjoying it at the moment. It's taken me a bit of time to read. But I'm really enjoying it, and I do just want to give it a shout out. It's from Fantagraphics. Yes, Fantagraphics. So it's definitely worth picking up. I'm sure they'll have it at the sort of more independent leaning comic book shops like Gosh. And I don't doubt that That's Entertainment out there in the US, where Liz goes for her comics, will also have it. It's definitely worth taking a look at if you've got an interest in Portland for a start, which I do. As I said, I also read a book by Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club, which was a non-fiction book about the kind of cultural fringes of Portland, called Fugitives and Refugees. I hope I've still got that book somewhere, because I might reread it soon. It's a fascinating book. That's worth tracking down as well. But yeah, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Manny Murphy. That is out now from Fantagraphics. Do pick that up. And just quickly on trades, I do want to mention this: The Dark Knight Detective. It's a Batman trade that reprints Detective Comics 612 to 614 and 616 to 621 and Detective Comics Annual number 3. Why am I telling you that? Because this stuff, Norm Brayfogle, Alan Grant, Steve Mitchell, who we met a couple of years back, was it? Back in 2019.
Yeah, he was lovely.
And, yeah, great guy. I do want to get back in touch with Steve because he's making a lot of interesting documentaries now. I hope he's well. I haven't seen him in ages, or I haven't spoken to him in ages. Dark Knight Detective Volume 5. These books are gold. Like, there is so much good, solid, one and done storytelling, and indeed, 4-issue kind of runs of stuff. Brayfogle is one of the great Bat artists. I think actually one of the great comic artists. I absolutely love this era of Batman. And the reason I want to mention it is because going into a lot of stores now, they tend to only have one copy of these. The reason for that is a lot of people don't seem to be picking them up. Guys, you're making a mistake.
I made this mistake and I'm kicking myself.
Yeah.
I picked up a couple of the, so that they have the other, book that ran in tandem with this was just the regular Batman series, I believe, and the books are being billed as Caped Crusader.
Right.
And I picked up a couple of those, but I just kind of took for granted that I'd be able to order the, the detective ones whenever I had the little extra cash to pick them up. Yeah. And of course, by the time I did that, they had dropped out of print. So it seems like the print runs are low. The stores are only offering, ordering a few copies at a time. So if you do see them and you want them, like, I would grab them. I will be grabbing that, if they have a copy at That's E, I will be picking that one up. But the other couple that have gone past, it seems like I've missed the boat, at least for now.
I've started getting these now. They sell out really fast. They don't seem to reprint them. I partly kind of blame DC for this, but I get it if people aren't ordering them. I think maybe every year or so they should do a limited print run of all of them again, just a limited one, and let us kind of all fight over it. There's great stuff. I'm slowly switching my Batman collection from singles to trade, so these are like a godsend for me. They're really nicely printed. The colors look really solid. The paper's really great. I know that stuff all seems a bit dull to anyone who's kind of not comics obsessed the way we are, but it is important. There's some great stuff in these books. A lot of the 90s Batman stuff gets dismissed. Don't dismiss it. Do take a look. It is really good stuff. But what it highlights is this. If you see a book coming out that's listed in previews, the trades are solicited like even further ahead than the comics. The comics are solicited 3 months ahead. Trades are solicited about 5 to 6 months ahead. If you see something in previews that you want to get and you want to make sure you get it, pre-order it with your local comic shop, because that will send a very clear message to the publisher that people want the book. Not pre-ordering has sunk more than a few good storylines. Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol, which may never see the light of day now because people just didn't order it from their local comic shop, therefore comic shops didn't order it, therefore, we don't need to print that book. It's insane. Guys, get on it. If you love these books or you're curious about all this stuff you missed, get on it.
Yeah, basically don't take for granted that it will just show up in your comic shop when it's supposed to, because if people don't express interest when the shops are looking to order, then it may not ever actually see print. So
yeah, and there is a thing where if there's not kind of like a movie coming out, I was just looking at the solicitations for August from DC before we jumped on, Liz, and the amount of Suicide books coming out is insane. Yeah, Suicide Squad, sorry. It is insane. It's an insane amount of trades. But they're also bringing out the very first sort of Ostrander run, Ostrander and Yale, I want to say. which is stuff I'm rereading right now. And we were talking about this on the phone the other day. It's brutal stuff.
I see that is a series that I have had on my list for quite a while.
Yeah.
They're going to be bringing the books out again. I mean, I feel like they were in print not that long ago.
Some of them are. They're doing the first one again. So they're doing Trial by Fire, which is a great one. But it gets more kind of concise and horrible as it goes on. And the characters are genuinely not nice people.
Yeah. Despicable people. Yeah. And, from what I understand, James Gunn is drawing a lot from that run. There's a picture of him, with Ostrander.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. Arm over the shoulder. I think I'm pretty sure he was a fan of that run, which doesn't surprise me. So I'm hoping that some of that bleeds out into his Suicide Squad film.
I will say, for a certain facet of the audience, there are some characters in it you will find massively deplorable. Not the film, but in the Ostrander comics. I think if you are not kind of willing or able to accept that these guys really are the villains and they do deplorable things, and they say deplorable things, and their attitudes are not reconstructed attitudes, it's probably not for you.
It doesn't really hold back or shy away from the fact that they're bad people, and that bad people exist in the world, and these are some of them, and they have character traits that are repugnant. And
you never want to sit there and go, oh yay, a racist, oh yay, a sexist. You never want that. But what is interesting about the book is it challenges your preconceptions of, can you root for those people? Do you want them dead? Would you be happy if they, if the Suicide Squad was really just all wiped out? And I think it's interesting to make that happen. And it's called, of course, interesting to see them kind of thrown into situations that no one else would take on. I mean, over the course of the book, they do take on Batman. One of my favorite exchanges of the Suicide Squad is during Invasion, where Batman runs into the Suicide Squad during a mission. And one of the Suicide Squad members says to him, "You won't have heard of us. We're not very glamorous, but we're willing to die for what we, for the mission," and blah, blah, blah. And Batman just looks at them and goes, "Don't be so dramatic." It's great stuff. It's well worth a read. But yeah, do try and take a look at some of that stuff when it comes out in August, because it's worth a read, but prepare yourself. I think I'm going to do a long form piece on it for the site on that run, to try and unpick some of that stuff, and sort of the attitude behind it. Just quickly, do we want to talk about some of the film stuff at the moment? Or
let's do a little bit of just quickly. Just want
to say, guys,
nothing crazy really happened this week, but except for we didn't talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff going on over the last couple of weeks that have been interesting, have been the basically big companies swallowing
other big companies. Amazon has purchased MGM, which is quite a beleaguered studio, and has been quite a beleaguered studio for many a year, at least for as long as I've been watching movies. There's always been some kind of mass thing happening at MGM. They've been looking for a buyer for a while. They've been sold to Amazon for $8.45 billion, which is a number I just can't get my head around. Which means Amazon, in theory, could control the James Bond series, because I believe MGM are the current sort of license holders for Bond. They're going to hold this massive library of really great movies, and something like, I can't remember, I think it's something like 7,000 TV shows. Like MGM have a massive library, which is the main reason why studios buy other studios. It's because there's an infrastructure that they need, in this case perhaps content, or it's just content. So sometimes they'll buy them because they've got a digital infrastructure. That's not the case here. Amazon are really looking at the content angle. Also, what's happening with Warner Brothers and therefore DC Comics is interesting at the moment. So Warner's are kind of they're merging the kind of content arm, so Warner Media, with Discovery, the Discovery Channel. This is going to cost something like 20 odd billion or 14 billion. Again, insane numbers that you or I or most people reading comics probably just cannot compute. Yeah. But what that means is we're now looking at apparently content consolidation. So in theory, at some stage, we could see DC Universe or some form of digital comics platform launching in the UK, because at present there isn't one. I think that's largely to do with Amazon's control of Comixology and the licenses and contracts that are in place there. Amazon are in a lot of trouble, kind of antitrust reasons at the moment. They're being looked at quite closely by the American government and various European bodies over antitrust stuff. There's a lot of kind of, if you're interested in this stuff, it is an interesting kind of thing to dig into. I've started digging into it. It's kind of, it's really kind of curious and fascinating. I would like to see some of this content consolidation. I would like to see a digital DC platform launch over here. I would like to see one place that maybe has the movies and the shows.
Yeah, because DC, with Marvel, in the UK, I think you can get Disney Plus and get everything you want. In the US, ironically, you can't. Right now, I'm really ticked off because there's some stuff that's going to be coming out on Hulu, the MODOK series, that I don't have Hulu. I got Disney Plus, but I want to watch MODOK. I don't want to have to get another whole streaming channel just to do it.
And that's strange. So as you say, in the UK we've got Star, but
that's part of Disney Plus. You pay for Disney Plus, you get Star, and you get the Hulu content.
I don't know what MODOK is actually on, though, whether or not they've actually put it on Disney Plus, because Disney Plus have a no higher than a PG-13 rule. So a lot of the more kind of bracing stuff has moved over to Star.
Yeah, I'm not sure, whether it's going to be Star or what, but
it's very unusual that actually we're ahead of the US in any way whatsoever.
Well, I know, because on the flip side of that, in the UK, you a lot of the DC stuff isn't as accessible. I think you have to wait ages for for example, the Titan series or any of those DC Universe series to come to Netflix.
So they've just announced that HBO Max will be showing Titan season 3, which is filming now. The cast have done a bunch of Insta stories and Insta TV things on that. The HBO's deal with Sky in the UK, I had to look into this the other day, is extending right until 2025. So we're gonna, but I don't know if the kind of Discovery deal will then, so if you buy the Discovery Channel, will you have access to loads of the Warner stuff? It seems that way. I would hope that they'll get all this sorted out. Lots of interesting stuff happening there. Liz, we've only got a few minutes left because we've kind of overrun as well.
Yeah.
We try not to keep it. So we did want to talk about Aaron Taylor-Johnson cast as Craven the Hunter, which seems to have caused a lot of ripples. Liz, how do you feel about it?
It's a weird one. It's totally a weird one. It's another instance, and I've said this about other casting choice. I think I've used this comparison before, where when they cast Heath Ledger as the Joker, I was like, huh? It's where it's just You know, so I was like, you know, kind of just like scratching my chin, like, you know, just him as Craven, you know, it's just the kind of last like actor that would have entered my mind to play that role. But that said, he's a very strong actor. He's a very like versatile actor. And genuinely, part of the biggest surprise for me was the fact that, you know, again, it's like he's gone from playing one Marvel character to another. Although it's kind of separate, you know, like those Sony Pictures films do exist kind of separately. At least now they exist separately to, you know, the Tom Spider-Man and what's going on there.
So far, Aaron Taylor Johnson has played Kick-Ass in the Kick-Ass movies. He's played Quicksilver in
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron. It's interesting that he kind of keeps circling around these roles. I'll be curious to see what happens. Wait and see, I guess. I was surprised. I remember messaging you saying, like, what the hell? But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. Also, other casting, well, not really casting stuff. This is non-casting
stuff, but that might certainly be casting stuff.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of fuss made over Emily Blunt recently, and of course John Krasinski. People keep fan casting them as Reed Richards and Sue Richards for the Fantastic Four movie. Emily Blunt has started to kind of lose her patience with interviewers slightly. She hasn't been rude. She was asked in an interview maybe a week and a half ago, "Oh, how do you feel about this Fantastic Four thing?" And her attitude has always been, "Look, that's fan casting." She was cast as Black Widow.
Yeah.
And
had
a few years back.
I can't remember what the scheduling conflict was, but to my mind, it worked out for the best because I actually think that at this point I really can't picture anyone but Scarlett Johansson as Natasha.
Absolutely. But it was a contractual thing where she had to do a movie to fulfill a contract, basically, which is very standard for young actors starting out. Ed Norton famously, like, I think he had to do like The Italian Job and something else for Paramount to kind of finish off a contract. He had to do 3 movies because he did Primal Fear. And the general idea is, we're going to give you this really plum, juicy role at the beginning of your career. And I think for Emily, it was Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
So she really wanted that. We'll give you this role, but you've got to do 2 more movies for us. We decide what those movies are. And yeah, they get, and quite often it's expected if an actor takes off, they won't be held to that. You know, they'll just come back and do a movie as a favor at some point for that studio. Unfortunately, she was held to it. I can't remember what the movie was. It was Gulliver's Travels. There you go. So that's why she didn't do Black Widow. So Fantastic Four, people keep fan casting. She kind of lost her patience a bit with an interviewer because they said, "Oh, how'd you feel about, all this talk of you and John playing Reed and Sue Richards for Fantastic Four?" She was just like, "You're the 3rd person to ask me today in these interviews, in this press junket for A Quiet Place about this." I think personally, I don't want to throw, gasoline on the fire. I actually think that maybe I've got a feeling they're going to end up playing it. I've got a feeling she may have already been asked. I got a feeling they may have. She has kind of said, "Superheroes not for me, thank you."
Mm-hmm. Say that, but would I be surprised whatsoever? I mean, I think that this fan casting thing is so strong. Like, as soon as they announced there was going to be a Fantastic Four movie, like, everybody, unanimously, sort of agreed that the best possible casting choice. And I agree with it. I actually think that they'd make a great Reed and Sue. So I hope that this is her just kind of like, being evasive and, that they've been offered it and that, that they're just waiting for the right moment to announce it.
I think so. I do highly recommend A Quiet Place 2. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week. Oh no, sorry. I've just done 2 shows back to back. So last weekend, Nikki and I recorded 2 episodes of From Panels to Pictures, where we talk about Jupiter's Legacy and Invincible, and then in the next one we talk about Army of the Dead and A Quiet Place 2. Those will be out next week, I think. Maybe Monday for Jupiter's Legacy and Invincible, and then maybe Wednesday for the next episode. Sorry, the schedule for these episodes is completely nuts at the moment. I haven't released the podcast version of our first episode of this yet, Liz. I'm really sorry. All right. You can look disappointed. Where are your headphones? Liz?
Well,
obviously, I am now tempted to buy
podcast version of our episode 1.
Yeah, I am now tempted to buy Liz a set of headphones. In order for me to do that, what would really help is if you guys take a look at the Patreon, which is up there or down there somewhere. I can't remember where it is, but it's somewhere on this YouTube channel. Please do take a look at the Patreon. You can join in for from as little as £2 a month. That helps us get comics. It supports me. It supports Liz. Please do that, because I would like to pay my co-hosts and buy them a set of headphones that they can't seem to remember to buy themselves. Also, it helps us do a bunch of stuff, and it helps us grow. We are trying to expand the site, expand these channels. We've got some great stuff lined up that we are plotting away right now. And you get quite a bit of stuff for the Patreon when I can pull my finger out and do it. Sorry, I'm really busy. The website is kind of a one-man show. It does take up a massive amount of time. Please do be patient with me if you join in with the Patreon. That's it for this week. Check out the new stuff in the web store now. Some of the comics that we talked about last week have gone in there. These comics will probably go in towards the end of next week. There's loads of stuff in the web store to check out. We buy our comics at Gosh Comics in London. Liz buys hers at That's Entertainment in Worcester, Massachusetts. The links for those stores are in the description below. Please click on those. Follow us on Twitter at The Comic Crush. Follow us on Instagram at The Comic Crush. Check out the page on Facebook. Follow Liz on Twitter at Liz C. Jordan. Same for Instagram. Check out Liz's website, lizcjordan.com, where you'll find loads of Liz's kind of comic reviews and things like that. They're really good and really worth.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, we're trying. We're doing the best we can. But yeah, well worth reading Liz's writing. It's all great stuff. We've gone over an hour again. Let's just blame Liz for that. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. We love you. Thank you very much for watching. Hello to all the new subscribers. Goodbye to all the new subscribers as well. We're going. Liz, thanks so much for taking the time out to do this today. I really appreciate you dropping by as always. We'll catch you next week.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Catch you next time on The Crush. Bye-bye.